We've all seen ridiculous attack ads on TV.
Newspapers across the country agree Vincent Rudd is the worst human being who has ever served in Congress. Rudd played baseball in high school, but in college, he quit. While he was one of 535 members of Congress, he single-handedly raised our taxes, while blatantly stating his support for our enemies.
I don't believe Al-Qaeda should pay taxes.
People of this country are fed up.
Vincent Rudd has done nothing for this country. And by country, I mean me. And by me, I mean a character I was hired to play, who's just like you.
Vincent Rudd. He's not right for Congress. Is he even human? Americans for an American America is responsible for the content of this ad, and there's no way we're going to tell you who really paid for it, because that would give you some idea of how motivated we are to stretch the truth.
Educate yourself. Be critical. Or just turn them off.
Okay, so where did this come from? It came from a group of very serious social scientists at Wesleyan who run the Wesleyan Media Project and produce what is probably the most cited statistical research on political advertising on television. And so they have been tracking since Citizens United the growth of the money, the growth of negativity in political advertising. But instead of doing what they usually do, which of course they still do, they added a website this year called attackads.org. And if I were going to show something to my sons to try to get a conversation going about the growth of negative political advertising, which now dominates both parties in all the national races, I'd probably show them that. So I think I should put that in Searchlights. So today this morning we talked about creativity as being part of the a competency that's going to be required to talk about, to teach, to prepare students for this future that we can't conceive. I don't think creativity is the only one. I heard today a lot of other competencies that were necessary to do the kinds of things that all of you are doing. When Alberto Ibargüen came to Knight Foundation, we searched among other foundations. We looked at ourselves. We looked at innovators, and we decided that for our purposes in changing the foundation, there were a few things we could call elements of transformation. And so when I was listening to you today, I realized you're falling into all those same categories. The elements that we found were discovery was the first step toward a big transformation, and that's the kind of thing Reynolds does here. That's the kind of thing Katie is doing. Vision. The new school's new ideas about what to do. West Virginia's dean has a vision. Florida's dean has a vision. An idea of the way things could be, something that could be different. And then courage. So courage is, going to class if you have a knot in your stomach and are afraid to do it. But it's a lot of other things. It's the thing that all of you talked about today was the courage to fail. That's about courage. And then know-how. So, Dan Pacheco and everything he talked about, that's know-how. And Jim, know-how. So I heard that from all these different campuses. So discovery, vision, courage, and know-how are common elements in transformation and common elements of what you were talking about today. Now, you also hit a little bit on the downside or the difficulty, the challenge, and that's something that we've known about in innovation for centuries. And Machiavelli wrote during the Renaissance, "There is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things." Nothing more perilous than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. Why? Because everyone who's anybody got that way in the old order of things. So they're all against you. So we heard a little bit about that. And there's a good piece in Neiman Reports today from a Missouri professor, talks about barriers to the teaching hospital model of journalism education and how we need to talk more about getting around these barriers, which is sort of not green shoots, but a little bit more gardening tips. How do you get around them? The last thing is that I wanted to say, and then I wanted to see if anyone else wanted to have a last word. A few years ago, we were starting to talk about the journalism educators who were making changes. We talked about 4 transformational trends in journalism education. And so I want to do a show of hands on these 4 transformational trends. We thought maybe we were right. We had looked around quite a bit. But here they are. How many of you in what you're doing have to work with other parts of the university outside of your, and how many of you are innovating and experimenting with new things? And how many have to do it with open collaborative teams? Teamwork instead of just individuals staring at the piece of paper until the blood drops form on their foreheads. The old lone wolf idea of journalism. And how many people are thinking about engaging the community, not just informing a community, but engaging a community? And so there's a majority on every single one of these transformational trends, or what we hope, once we get some metrics in place, what we hope we will see as transformational trends. So that's what I took away from today. A lot of cool things to add to Searchlights, including that video, and some larger categories of activity that you're engaged in that I want to think more about. What are the other competencies that are needed to do all of these things that you're all doing? I think that one thing that's emerged very strongly is the idea of being up to date, a value of being up to the moment in how you do things. It's a paradox because in the news business, the news has to be up to the moment or it's no good. We have to make it, create a great enterprise that makes news at that moment, or report things as quickly as we can to the moment that they happen. But our processes being up to the moment, that's a different story. It's almost as though psychologically we can only handle so much. You can send a reporter who's 3 times your age to cover a fire at midnight, like I did when I was a young newspaper editor. But when they come back, if you ask them to sit in a different desk or to somehow do what they do in a different way, that's not allowed. So we're now looking to develop a competency of, in a sense, multitasking or supertasking, where we're able to stay up with changes in news, but also stay up with changes in how we do the news. Complicated, not necessarily easy, But if we don't take a role in our own future, who's going to decide our future for us? You know, if journalists can crawl inside the new technology and bend it to journalistic purposes, then we have a chance of some of our values making it through this transition. And when you start to see news bots and intelligent agents and algorithms that can try to find out if things are accurate, if things are true, you would start to see the kinds of things you can get when you combine journalism and technology. So that's what I took away.